Hello and we are live. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And I know I say it at every single episode, but there's a few people you meet in your lifetime which leave a lasting impression in what you do. And today's guest is one of them. We get started in a minute. Hello again. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And today I have a really good friend of mine, Mr. Jason Berkowitz, the CEO of Arrow Up Training. Jason, thanks for being here today.
I'll give myself an applause as well.
If anybody is seeing his video right now, he's looking absolutely fabulous, even though he just came back from Europe. And we're really excited to have a follow-up conversation with Jason. And I haven't told Jason this. Jason, by views, is #1 episode in our show of the Disruptive Chef. Over 45,000 views over the last 6 months. Jason, it's all because of you. It's not because of mine. So it's, because of you. And you had the single most question of any of our guests so far. People were intrigued with your background, why you want to do what you did, because you seem very successful as the COO, because you are the COO, and stuff, what you do. And so today I want to get into question number 2. But if people have not met Jason Berkowitz, give everybody the 2-minute cliff note who you are.
Well, that's exciting. So I'm a man who's not easily excited, but you get me going. I'm going to keep running, and so that's definitely fuel for my tank. So I appreciate that. I'm a longtime restaurant partner, operator, started at Burger King at 14 and worked my way up through. I started in the back of the house, to all of you, and quickly realized that I'm better in the front, managing and navigating the people. So to protect the back of house and the heart of house, as we like to call it. Although I do a little cooking at home, which is fun. But nothing great, nothing like this audience. And worked my way up through and really helped a sweet spot where I was scaling restaurant groups, where if you had something that was working, Umami Burger is an example, Tokai Organica, different concepts, I would come in and I would figure out a way to put systems and operations and people in place so we can infuse some capital and really grow this thing and take off. And then along the way, I'd always realized my love is training. And after raising, roughly 20 million for the last brand as a chief operating officer, I'm in the boardroom and I'm doodling training quotes. And I was like, all right, it's time for me to go. And that was 5 years ago. We launched Arrow Up Training. And the idea is to help restaurants build safer and stronger teams. And we really help them invest in their people.
I mean, if you guys haven't done so, you need to go back. It was about 6 months ago in January. We interviewed and had this conversation with Jason around what he does. But for me, the key takeaways, and I'm looking at my list of questions here, what people wrote in, and we're not going to get through all of them. So maybe today collectively we can ask him maybe for a 3.0 conversation.
I love it.
But what a lot of the chefs ask, the whole, and you just said it about training. And I have John here. John is from Missouri. He didn't say we're in Missouri, but John said training. Is training a learnable skill, or is it something which comes natural to you? And then he had a follow-up question. How can every chef make training #1? Because without number one training, nothing else exists. I totally agree with you, John. And so it's a threefold question. How do you look at training? And for you, with all of the conversations we have, and if anybody follows you on Instagram or LinkedIn, for you, you are living training. For you, training is not just a job. You are. So for me, if there's anybody in training, I think of you. Where did that come from? And where did you learn that? And is that a learnable skill? To question number 2 from John. What do you talk to us a little bit about that?
I want everyone to think back to the playground and walking in and looking around and trying to understand where they fit and trying to understand who's their tribe, what's going to happen, when do you take your turn on the slide? How do you go down the slide? How do you climb up? How do you wait? how do you ask Jenny out? Who worked? Who didn't? And to me, you think about where you enter a new environment and how you feel like you belong in that environment.
Mhm.
And if you have ever tried to find your way around an environment, or anyone ever showed you a way around an environment, then you understand training, because then you can take yourself back to the empathy of the moment. The learnable
Mhm.
skill is just to take a moment and, do you actually care to make sure that somebody understands how to do something?
Yeah.
Everyone just wants to know 2 things. It's this simple to all of you, and I don't know if I've said this previously, and the other one is, everyone wants to know 2 things. What's my job? How am I doing?
Mhm.
So, very simple, very difficult. What's my job is, how do you actually, uh, what does this look like? How do you want me to cut the onions? How do you want me to clean the pans? How do I mop the floor the way that is the right way? Mopping the floor, we think it's an obvious thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's an awkward thing. And if a lot of people don't know, do I get the small spill first or the big spill? To some people, it's obvious. To other people, it isn't. And so, it's learning how to do something a particular way. Now, this begins first, and I'm going to answer a few of these questions
Yeah.
in one. It answers with first saying, well, have we defined what the right way looks like? And let's talk about training in the sense of skills or recipes or plating or anything. The first thing you need to do is document it. Got to document it, and document it in the simplest form. Now, to anyone sitting there and saying, sounds great, I don't have enough time.
Mhm.
That is an incredible opportunity to tap the next person on your team who's looking to do something and say, I want to do this. This is where I want to go. And I want you to help me document what's going on and put this thing together. And so, you have people around you who are looking to train, are looking to foster that empathy. They also want to work next to somebody who knows what they're doing. And you
Mhm.
can start to put this stuff together. And so, to me, I've loved it. One other quick story. When um, my last jobs as either a VP or as a COO, and this part I think I said before, but we got some fresh listeners, so I'm not gonna worry about that. The first thing I did was, nobody talked to me for the first 30 days. I'm gonna go put a training program together. Don't even give me an email address. I'm not gonna open it, because I knew the second I did that, I'm an operator. And the
Yeah.
second you're an operator, you are no longer a trainer. You're no longer proactively putting
I
things in
love that.
place. You are putting out the fires. You are taking care of what is urgent over what is important.
Mhm.
And I literally, at Umami, I had a VP, COO, or whatnot, first 30 days. And what did I do? I went around, I asked people questions, and I documented it and got everybody involved and put it together. So, yes, it's a learnable skill. It's just about finding the piece of you that has the patience, the empathy, and the time to say, I'm going to organize this for other people.
I absolutely love that. Which, let's go a little bit deeper on his question number 3. Where he says that training is everything in the food industry. So, talk to how can a chef make training not an intentional part or an integrated part of what we do? How can they do training without setting up a formal meeting? Say, oh, we gotta do this training today, because you also talked to us at the last episode that training happens instantly, and there's opportunity to make small corrections which have a bigger impact long term. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's about, are you in a new restaurant opening? Do you have somebody that's coming in? If you've been up and running, you wanna tap people and make sure that they're teaching it a consistent way. I don't think you need a long form, but I do think you
Yeah.
need to document at least something. Whether or not you have 1 location or 2 or 3 or 4 or beyond, something that's really important is that somebody's not saying, they do it this way over here, but they do it this way over here. And what training is first establishing a form of consistency. So, I would say, don't look at it as this big form and these big documents and all that it is. Just, what are the things that it's really good to document? The recipe, the measures, a couple different things. Get those down, build on it. How do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. So just start taking little bites out of it, the things that you think there isn't that there's an opportunity for more consistency. Just
Yeah.
start putting them together. You don't build the whole canvas. You start to just fill in the blanks and watch the momentum start to build on it and to capture people in. So to say that, right? Document a couple different things, put a central point of record, put it on an iPad, put it on index cards, whatever you want to do that people can agree with.
Mhm.
Ask people when they're excited to start to maybe pull out their phone and film them doing this. So you put a little put it in a Dropbox file. And then, as you said, in the moment, what's great is if people know what's consistently expected, then in the moment, they know how to
Mhm.
correct it in a way that it's not inconsistent. The thing
Yep.
that's really important is how you correct somebody in that moment and whether or not you go in with the idea of a learning mindset. So back to the first question, is with training, can we all be
Mhm.
trainers in a sense? Yes. If you go in with the understanding that if you come off screaming at somebody or giving the intention that this person's an idiot because they don't have it, then physiologically, this person's going to shut down because you're now an enemy. It goes back to the tribes. You don't like me, which means I got to figure out a way to protect
Mhm.
myself against you. And they're not going to listen to you. So if you're a leader and chef and whatnot, you got to drop that ego. I know you have a bleep, so I didn't drop an F bomb, but that's where I would have put it. You gotta drop that ego for a second and say, "Am I
Mhm.
judging this person, or am I taking a moment to ask them or to show them the way to do it?" And you just gotta think back to that was you, man, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
We all have been that person, and we all have that story to
Absolutely.
tell.
I love that. I love that. And then we have a little pivot here on the question from Samantha from Cleveland, Tennessee. I'm not 100% sure where Cleveland, Tennessee is, but
I know
sounds like
Cleveland,
an amazing
Ohio, that's where I'm from, so I like it.
uh, sounds like an amazing place. And she said, I'm not a hospitality professional, but I was intrigued with your Vegas story. Um, and I think that was the story where you talked about you felt like you knew you needed to do something else. And that's the follow-up question. How do you know it's the right time to make a decision? I'm in a decision, but I'm bound on the financials. How do you make that decision?
How did you make that decision?
For me, I think it was different. So I had always a side hustle, and I always was on the verge where the side hustle where I said, hey, if I do this full time, I can make the same money as I make now. And for me, the only thing was always insurance. I was worried about insurance for me. And during COVID, I had the opportunity to, I worked for Compass Group, and they said at the time, um, "Do you want to have a severance and do all of this? 2 years non-compete." I was like, "No. How about if I walk out today? You don't owe me any money, and I don't owe you any time." And at the time, I think he was perfect, so they let me walk away. I walked away free man, and hustled the next day. And for me, that's how I did it. I was I would say COVID happened for me, not to me, because that was my burning the ship. That was you heard if you want to conquer the island, burn the ship, and for me, I burned the ships.
I don't recommend everybody burning the ship. Uh, you're a unique individual. I know for me, I was no longer going to be I was winding down my road to be of service to the ship that I was a part of. I'd realized I have a really good
Mhm.
skill of taking people to 20 units, and
Yeah,
beyond that, I start to get over my skis a little bit. So to me, it was a combination of the universe it was me accomplishing what I wanted to achieve. It was leaving people in a better place. It was feeling that the time was coming. It was a lot of it that comes together. So the answer is always make a business plan. I'm not a fan of just leaping as you will. I'm a fan of a business plan.
yeah,
It's not going to work out the way that you think, uh, you know, we make plans and God laughs, and not to say that in a religious sense, but that's the old or the best laid plans of mice and men. These are the old, wartime stories that happen. But I think you need a plan to help make sure that it at least makes sense on paper
yeah.
of how you can do something. And then you start to leap and you grow. So the answer is, can you make it make sense on paper first? That's whether you're starting a
Mhm.
business, whether you're opening up a restaurant, no matter what it is, it has to at least add up. It's not going to work out that way, but at least has to work out some way.
Yep.
And is there a need that you think you have a unique skill to offer?
Mhm.
It's really how you would do how I think people should take the leap.
I love what you just said, because for me, I'm a big proponent that people need to start something, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be perfect. Start, because as you evolve, and maybe I want to ask that question also of you. What I started doing now 5 years ago is not what we do today. Or it evolved. It's something different, and in essence, it's still the same. The way we support the industry, but the vehicle, how we do it, changed. How was that for you? As you made that pivot, what was Arrow Up like, and where do you spend your time now versus starting up?
I wanna hold that question and let's get back to it, but let's talk about you and
Mhm.
what you're doing for a second. If somebody's talking about making a leap and shifting and opening up a business and planning to replace their money,
Mhm.
that's an entire different thing. What if we're which was what I was referring to do. There's a lot of people out there that are listening that you're tapping into, that you're being a guide and an
Mhm.
aid towards, who you're trying to get them to bottle up what their value add and their knowledge is and start to share it in a way that builds a road.
Mhm.
You're also doing something that takes a lot of energy away from people. As you grow your business, so I'm answering both at the same time, as you grow any business, the key is to ask yourself this question. And somebody who was pitching me a virtual assistant uh, business 5 years ago said this to me. I want you to make a list and divide what gives you energy and what takes energy. And I absolutely loved that, because the goal is to move into things that give you energy because that's a
Mhm.
value. Sometimes you've got to do both along the way: contracts, legal work, all this stuff. So, back to what you provide. If somebody has the ideas and the genesis that they think is the can turn into a book, well, what you're doing is saying you get as much as you can down that gives you energy, and we're going to help you shape and guide you in a way that's going to take it further across the line. Because otherwise, A, you're never going to do it
Mhm.
because you think you have to eat the whole elephant. No, what you're coming in is you're saying you're taking a bite at a time, and we're actually going to help share the meal with you so that we move to the finish line. Now has never been a better time for somebody that has an idea and wants to water that idea or grow that idea or take a bite out of that idea, because of services like what you're providing
Mhm.
as a guide, where they're the hero. They're then writing something to make the listener understand they become the hero, and you're guiding all of them through it. I get into Donald Miller, Story Brand, and all this.
Yep.
So that's the way that you've arced and evolved is absolutely incredible, because you're also dealing with a lot of creatives, and
Mhm.
it's hard to be the creative and the operator. It's hard to be the
Totally agree.
integrator and the visionary. And uh, your services really help with that. For myself, I was doing all. Then I found a great creative partner who's better than me, and we've kind of expanded that, and I've moved out of it. You know,
Mhm.
I love stories, getting back to growing any restaurant group. You have founders who do everything. Well, what you try to do is say to them, "Where's your value? What's the $1,000 an hour job? Because you're also doing $15 an hour work right now, and if you keep doing that, you're never going to be able to grow this company in a unique way like you do that." And tons of
Mhm.
people have trouble letting go of the $15 an hour jobs because there's some sort of security they feel with it.
Yeah.
And that's, we've talked about a couple things, but it's all,
Yeah.
I think,
No,
in the same
I
line.
I love that. So let me give you an example of what happened yesterday. We had a meeting offsite, and I have this local restaurant, mom and pop. It's done by mom and her aunt running this. And I went there the day before because I opened up at 11, but I needed my food by 11:30, so I make it to the meeting. And so I walk in yesterday, and she's by herself, and she said, "You know what? I realized I can save myself a $15 an hour employee by doing during the day both jobs." And so she's running, having a conversation with me. There's more customers coming in. She's sort of running a little bit late, making my final 2 sandwiches, and she's doing this. And at the meeting we went to, afterwards, I was sitting there, I was like, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. So we went back there again because I picked up some meals to bring back to the office. And I said to her, you know what? It bothered me. Not that you do all of this. I think your time is much better spent building a relationship with me, the people which walked in behind me, which is worth more than $15, because you could have upsold me and anything else, you can make those $15 an hour back. And for me, we became friends over the last, few years, and she's working, and then she says, oh, I'm thinking of franchising. I said, you're not even close to franchising. You first need to let go of the one. And she says, that's my problem. I have a really hard time letting go because I didn't like how my person wrapped the sandwich. I didn't like how they filled it and layered it, because you need to layer the dishes, and it was for me a confirmation on, I think she's not the only one. A lot of people in the industry struggle with that. And you kind of alluded to this with your answer earlier. How do you let go? I think that's what holds people back from scaling it. It holds people back from growing their business, because they're becoming the people doing it versus the people managing. The whole idea of work on your business, not in your business. And you did that, and you made it sound very insignificant. Oh, I found somebody who's better than me, and they take me over. But that's a huge thing. This is your baby you handed over. How do you do that?
Uh, it depends on the business, right? In restaurants, I had a lot of experience going in and talking to people who were both HR and managers, and they're running the boat. And I said, I got to bring in somebody to actually be the recruiter now for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm doing the recruiting. I know, but if you do the recruiting, you can't grow the business and the HR side of it. Do you want to do
Mm-hmm.
recruiting or this? Well, I can do both. Well, you can do both now, but you can't do both
Yeah.
when we're going to grow to the next location and the next location. And it's kind of two different ways of approaching
Yeah.
this. One is, are they an employee already? In which case, you're trying to help them be able to take a vacation. They're worried that if they can take a vacation, then they also could be fired.
Mm-hmm.
And the let go to grow is an interesting concept. So think about that with any team members around you, to make sure they understand that if you're trying to get them out of a job or out of working out of it, it's to show them the growth of it, that they can take a vacation, not that they can get fired.
Mm-hmm.
To the owner, to me, to those other things, it's understanding, do you want to have a scalable business or not? And if you don't want to have a scalable business and you're a consultant, then that's fantastic. And there's enough AI tools that are coming into play that you can have somebody
Mm-hmm.
schedule for you and have somebody work out the marketing images and whatnot. But if you're actually if somebody doesn't make the sandwich the right way, then that's on you, not
Mm-hmm.
teaching them. Going back to the first question, is this not a teaching mindset? Well, if it's not, then get the
Yeah.
person next to you and say, I need you to help me document this so I can help you teach it and prepare it. I think because I've come with so many different stories and experiences of getting people's hands off the wheel, that I just knew that this is what I needed to do. Also, I just knew that I couldn't do what needed to grow. I couldn't do it as well as the people that I'm finding. And
Yeah.
who cares about ego? It's my business. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not worried about not being good enough. I'm worried about the product not being good
Mm-hmm.
enough.
And I think that's what makes people like you unique, and for me also is, we hired our first full-time person. And when they come and say, hey, what do you want me to do? No, I can't tell you, because if I tell you what to do, I will get what I always had. I don't, I need something new. You do it. There's no right or wrong. Um, but it is hard. It is hard. And I could see with her yesterday, there was a few minor things which kind of, I haven't said to her yet, but I think I will make a point of stopping by. Normally, when I get there, product is done. A beautiful paper bag. It has her label on it. All the stuff is in it. Off I go. Yesterday, she says, "Oh, I've been so busy. I forgot to order the bags. So I had to, I had 9 sandwiches. I had to run them out to the car because there was no bag or anything she had. Um, Also, the quality of the utensils were different than what she had in the past. So all of that for me, she devalued her brand with me yesterday. She thought she's saving $15 an hour, but for me, I didn't see this at $15. I was like, wow, um, this is a really cool concept. That's why we always go there. But it felt rushed yesterday, and it felt devalued.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you've mentioned a couple different things. We'll start with this and work backwards. Is
Mhm,
the cash flow is huge, right? And it's a very
mhm,
difficult thing to talk to an owner without being inside their
yeah,
books and say, you got to spend the money now to grow the business. But if you've seen that this uh, fear-based mindset, not abundance-based mindset, and you saw it a couple of years ago and you're seeing it grow and find its way
mhm,
into things like the utensils, then that does become a concern, right? And they're probably worried about the dollars and they're worried about where they're spending the money, but they're missing the larger picture.
mhm,
And it's very difficult to tell somebody, right, they need to spend more when we don't know their cash flow. But hands down, 10 out of 10 restaurants that start to save money in the things that we notice don't grow and
mhm,
start to shrink. And it's just an inevitable. It's a very difficult thing to show somebody. Um, but it's mandatory and it's necessary. And to anybody listening, your napkins matter. People notice when it switches. Your anything that the guest touches, anything that the guest feels. As you said, $15 an hour. Think about all the time she could be growing her catering business just by talking to people who walk in the door.
yeah,
How about all of the people? How many? We've all had the conversation with the restaurant owner that is short staffed, not because um, they can't find anybody,
mhm,
but because they don't want the extra server because they don't want to spend the $20 an hour with everything going on. I said,
mhm,
that's one drink. If you just literally can get them to get one extra drink on 4 different tables, you've literally paid for it right then
yeah,
and there. Now let's see what's plus above and beyond. So you're
yeah.
100% right. Um, yeah, that's kind of good to focus there.
And so the final thing that I was, she says, "Oh, did you try our paninis?" And I said, "I did." But I said, "You made this panini, which was done out of," she has this Colombian bread she buys from a bakery down the street. It was absolutely delicious. And so she turned it over and had the soft side toasted in the panini she made, but she made a corned beef. I said, "Oh, I didn't see the corned beef back on the menu. Otherwise, I would have ordered a panini." She says, "I know that was such a big hit." And then I was like, "You said it was such a big hit, and now you don't do it?" She says, "I only did it over St. Patty's Day." And for me, it was a totally different experience yesterday. And so I want to kind of reflect back to her because she just said there was a sandwich was hugely popular, and yeah, and I don't condone it. There's a problem in it, and just the overall thing. For me, it was for the first time I felt yesterday. It felt totally different than it did a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, and that's a real problem is because now you're talking about menu offering, right? Before we're
Hmm.
talking about these other little things that still don't affect the bite. Now you're talking about the bite, and that's pretty bad. But
Hmm.
something else to make sure we communicate to everybody listening, if they own a small restaurant or whatnot, more times than not, you know, you can go into somebody's restaurant and find pennies somewhere else to make up the difference of not needing to stop spending here. This could be something as simple as not as simple, but your insurance,
Hmm.
right? Looking at where you are with that, not lowering it, but putting some things in place to lower your XMOD score, figuring out how you can negotiate. This is going to your purveyors and partners and saying, why don't we negotiate some different pricing on what's going on here?
Hmm.
This is just your waste in so
Hmm.
many different areas. If you've got your bar mops and you're spending 9 to 17 cents per bar mop, depending on how you've negotiated, and your cooks are using 6 per shift, these things add up, right? How about just here's the biggest one that I just did with a friend of mine. He shared me, he wants to grow.
Hmm.
He's got a great concept up north. I don't I consult for a couple different people just for fun of it, right? You got to keep your hands in the mix. This is where you and I kind of dove in at one point. And he's ready to raise money. And he's
Mhm.
got lines out the door. And I said, "Let me get your food costs."
Yep.
And they were at 48%. And I said, "I can't get you money on 48%." And look, I said, "I don't need to know where you're living off of the business. This is yours. You got to put your car in there. You want to
Mhm.
put your whatever, your dinner's out, your this is yours. No, you've been doing this for 15 years. Nobody can tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you how much money you're leaving on the table because I bet you're not measuring the corned beef, how much goes on the sandwich. I
Mhm.
bet you that you're not being consistent." So back to the idea of where training matters to chefs. If you don't create first a theoretical food cost that says this sandwich should cost this much. Prices fluctuate, Jason. I know. But let's just start off right now. How much does bread cost? How much does okay, you're going to cook the turkey down. Great. How
Mhm.
much does it cost for how many ounces? I want you to get your theoretical.
Yeah.
You don't have to go crazy with everything. Just show me this. Well, now we're looking at a theoretical food cost of 28%. Well, okay, on a high quality product, Tyler, but I can deal with that. Some of them are at
Yeah.
22%. Great. Now let's actually scale. Let's actually look at and put the training so that the sandwiches are always going out with that much. So I bet you if she did consistency, she'd pick up 3 to 4 points on the food easily that she could
Mhm.
invest other places. Tell me I'm wrong, chef.
No, you're absolutely right. And for me, um, and I on purpose didn't tell you how she started out. She started out my very first time in. Everybody talked about it. You need to go to this place. It's this tiny little place, has one table in there, sits four people. Small, just takeout. Absolutely amazing. You walked in, it smelled amazing. It looked put together. Um, the beverage cooler was full. It has, the two-door Pepsi cooler in it. And while she was conversing while the other person behind it made the dishes, she said, "Hey, I started a email list I want to send out to people, and I want to send it out. Do you know 3 or 5 friends which you think would like my food so they get to know me?" I was like, "I know 15 of them." Wrote it down, my phone, writing things down. And as I left yesterday, this is not the person which I seen yesterday. Um, Yesterday it was about maintaining, not growing. And
Yeah.
for me, you talked about that. And if I see so many little things, I love what you said. Napkins matter. For me, absolutely they do. You could skimp on a fork, I make it work. But napkin, if I can read the newspaper through it, it's not a napkin. It's an idea.
Mhm.
It's not a napkin. And for me, it was for me yesterday was just it felt so different. And because I'm emotionally involved, because I love what she does and I want her to succeed, so I feel the need to come back and have this conversation with her, because that's really was totally different. So for me, and that's what you are innately good at. And I know we're running out of time today, but I want to talk a little bit more about it because there was a time for you where you knew, you know what, if I do this, I cut certain expenses, I can make a good living leaving the training where it is without growing it. And having that mindset that hey, I need to control everything, but how do you overcome that? And for me, that's what makes successful people even more successful, and that makes people, even if they have a great product, kind of just stay afloat because they're missing this little thing. In your opinion, what is that little extra which makes Jason saying, "Hey, I'm ready to scale, I'm ready to do this, I'm not cutting back, I'm investing back into it. Doesn't matter what it is because I bet on my future." So how do you do that?
I think a lot of it is therapy. No. Um, it's look, I'm
Leave.
going through it. I've done good. I have not dropped one F-bomb. I'm doing such a fucking good job. Oh, sorry. Uh, um, I think I'm going through it myself. Let me tell you where I've been terrible at investing in marketing. I've been terrible at pushing things out that I believe has the value. I struggle being a vendor to the restaurant world, identifying as an operator. I
Mhm.
completely do not have all those answers. I'm I'm constantly looking for ways to leverage that as a strength and to be that organic and authentic of how I communicate what we're selling and sharing. But the word selling is terrible to me.
Mhm.
I've been spending for five, and it's wrong. That's me. So
Yeah.
to anybody who's having trouble with that, we'll have a kumbaya circle, and chef's gonna, Christian's gonna lead this with us. So it's a constant evolving battle that we all work through. I have been using it as a little bit of a fun pivot and a strength because I've been really working towards getting sponsors to allow me to produce and give away a freemium of our training. And we're
Mhm.
starting to do that, and sort of this idea, right? And carrying with it. I've pivoted a little bit about what we're selling, more in the leadership development, less in the clients. Sorry, in the
Mhm.
compliance, because I like talking about it. Um, so I'm telling you that this is an ongoing struggle. I am putting more money away into the marketing side of things than I haven't. And to me, it's always constant. To me, it was never about I want to take more money off the table. It's I want to build more content, which costs money. I want to do more marketing,
Mhm.
which costs more money. So it's about understanding the priority. The answer to all of that really is, or to a good deal of it, is to continually put stuff out there and listen and get feedback and to hear people. We recently switched a phrase that said developing supervisors into leaders.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Everyone in my support group is like, I love that. And they're just posting it and talking about it. Well, you know what? There's something that I'm going to put a little bit more effort into. So if you're doing something and somebody heard a phrase, a catchphrase, if you talked about a product, if you made the corned beef, right? The idea, this panini, I think the short answer is, what have you done that people have talked about it, and that's where you should put a little bit double down on. Now,
Mhm.
that being said, if everyone said, I like your corned beef panini, you should open up a restaurant, and you don't know first thing about it, don't go open up a restaurant first thing about it. Let chef figure out how to test this around, because
Yeah.
getting people to say they like it and getting people to spend money on it and putting a business behind it is a hell of an arc.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and I can talk to you forever, but I promise you, I get you out on a certain time. So I wanna adhere to this
I want to be with you forever.
program. But if to our listener, I have a challenge to you. First of all, number one, you guys got to go out there and follow Jason Berkowitz, follow Air Up Training. You find them online, you find him on LinkedIn. He's very active in LinkedIn. You guys need to follow up.
Jason D. Berkowitz.
Number one. The second thing you need to do, I want you guys to reach out to Jason and myself. What is your napkin? What is the thing we sometimes forget about? What is the thing we take for granted? And what is the thing we need to push our boundaries on? Because one of the reasons we have the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show is we want you to think different. And I love that whole philosophy of, the napkin matters. For some reason, that really stuck with me because it does. And for me, it might not be a napkin. For me, it's the way I need to let go, the way I need to look at my people differently. The number two thing I learned from you today is when you train your people, see the action versus the person, because we want to improve the actions and not the person, because I think it's hard to improve a person, but we want to have the outcome be. And for me, it's just confirmation there's nobody better at this than you. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here today. Thanks for offering up your advice and giving so freely. And there's one thing we haven't told Jason. He might be episode number one.
Woo!
What we do, we have a little giveaway. So if you guys see this and this is episode number 100, I want you to reach out to us because we're giving away 5 Hydro Flask water bottle to ionize your water. All you need right in the description below, what is your napkin? So with that, Jason, any final words of wisdom?
I think, first off, it's so great. We're going to continue this conversation of what is your napkin. There's going to be a series. We're going to start we're gonna we're gonna do this. We're gonna
Mm.
pick this up with you, me, and Sean Walchef at our Rising
Oh, I would
Tide
love that.
LinkedIn Live Wednesdays and
Mm.
Fridays, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard. We're gonna do this. What is your napkin? The thing that I'll leave you with is anybody who is in your life that is depending on you or partnering with you is to say, do they know what it means to do a good job? What does that look like? And do they know if they are? Are you
Mhm.
proactively in any way, shape, or form truly answering the question of this is what good looks like and you're doing a good job, or this is how you can do it better? And sometimes it's really awkward, but have the conversation and then listen and have a good conversation about it.
I love that. Jason, you're amazing. Thanks for coming on the Disruptive
Chef,
Chef Show. We love you. Obviously, our listeners do too. 45,000 of them agree with us. So with that, until next time, remember, disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. Be more like Jason. Find your napkin. Christian, I'm the Disruptive Chef entrepreneur host. I'm signing off. So go be the change, be the challenger, be the chef who sets the world on fire. And you know what? More than that, go out there and be disruptive. Thanks, everybody.